Hey, what's up, guys? We're here at Centennial High School inside the boys basketball team room for a very special gridiron question. Our guy, the Boost Man, Ray Bass, had a chance to sit down with Huskies boys basketball coach Josh Giles. Boost Man.
Thanks, Pep. You know, I've been around youth sports in the community for over 10 years, and something I always hear from parents is, they talk about development. They're looking for the coaches who can develop their child. But, what exactly is development? What does it look like? You'd be surprised how many parents don't know exactly what development even is. Coach, you've built an impressive resume here at the 10. You've won championships in every category, state, CIF, regional, and you've produced a lot of athletes who've went on to play collegiately and professionally. What does development look like to you?
So to me, I think, everybody goes to practice. So to me, development is the stuff that you do outside of the mandatory. So, if we have a practice at, for us, it's 8 in the morning. So if we go 8 to 9:30 in the morning, if we have a weights after school, well, everybody in the program, every player did that. So your development really happens is what did you do outside of that? And so to me, that's where you really start to develop. Guys that just come in and just do the practice stuff, yeah, you get that skill set, but that's going to be, specifically designed for the team. To me, development is what do you do for yourself, the individual athlete. So, we have one of my assistant coaches, Shannon Sharp. He's a skills trainer. He has, he has an impressive resume of the people that he's worked with. He's trained NBA guys. Yeah. And so I have a lot of my players will go see him, and they see him outside of the stuff that we do. So if we have usually we go 2 to 3 hours a day when you factor in weights and stuff like that. Yeah. Days when we're in conditioning, we might go 4 hours. We'll do that a couple times a week. What are you doing outside of that? And the perfect example for us would be a guy like a Jared McCain. Like his development was crazy, but all those unseen hours, like he did so much outside of the mandatory. So if we had an 8 a.m. practice, well, he's here at 6:30. So he's already developing an hour before everybody else gets here. When school's out, if we're doing weights, he goes over and he's doing another lift or he's doing another workout. So to me, I think that's the development. Are you seeing a speed and agility guy? Are you working, for basketball? Are you working on, your jumping ability? I think nowadays, I'm just getting older, but when I was an athlete, weights wasn't emphasized. Yeah. Now, if you're not lifting weights, you're falling behind. You can't not lift weights now. Yeah. So I think all of those things are development. What are you doing outside of the mandatory? And it can't be like, oh, I went in my backyard and I got I shot for 30 minutes. Yeah. It is specifically, seeking out help, whether it be from a trainer, a skills trainer, somebody that does something with speed and agility that is focusing on that specific, what's the word I'm looking for? That specific, whatever that need is for the sport. Yeah. So if it's football, what are you doing from a speed, and agility? Basketball, ball handling, shooting. For sure. I think those are the main things with development. What do you do outside the mandatory?
Absolutely. It's that extra work. When you talk about guys like Jared McCain, and that's every parent's dream to have that type of story play out. And I think you already kind of answered this, but what is your process of taking a player and making him to a college prospect, like you did with Jared McCain?
Right. I think a lot of it has to be self-driven. We've been very fortunate. I've been very, very fortunate to have had a lot of great athletes in this locker room. And I've had some great players in here. It's funny though that the guys that have had the most success in high school, that have gone on to have the most success in college, and outside of Jared McCain, we still have 5 or 6 guys that are playing professionally right now overseas and stuff like that. Those guys always seem to be the first to show up, the last to leave. Of course. And it's just funny how that always works out. I've never had a guy that has come through Centennial, went and had success in college, and then went and played, maybe overseas or whatever, even if their career stopped in college, but they still had a successful collegiate career. Yeah. Not a single one was a last to practice, first to leave guy. Not a single one. They were always the first guy to practice, or one of the first guys to practice. Yes. And they're the kind of guys that you have to kick them out of the gym. Hey, it's time to go home. Things like that. And yes, it is every parent's dream, but we've been very fortunate to have that. But I think a lot of it is self-driven. For sure. They have to have the motivation to do the stuff that we're talking about. What do you do outside the mandatory? Mm-hmm. And if you have, if mom and dad have to drive them to go do it, I don't think it's the same. You know, like with a Jared, because everybody uses him as an example, with a Jared McCain, like he was so driven. And if you ever watched his workouts, especially now, because he's only gotten better and better as he's gotten older and as he's figured out more and more like what he needs to do to improve and get better every day, there, you know, he might be laughing and joking around, but when it's time to work, it's work. Like there's no laughing, there's no joking around, there's no wasted repetitions. There is no such thing as wasted movement. You know, so his hour workout looks a lot different than most people's hour workout. You know what I mean? There's absolutely there's just no wasted time. There's no wasted energy. There's no wasted effort. And every rep is done at game speed. It's done at max effort.
Love that.
And it's so obvious when you see him work out. It's like, you know, that's the reason why he is where he is. You know, it's not because he was the greatest athlete. Everybody knows that. It wasn't because he was the biggest or the strongest, but he might be the hardest working. You know, so that's kind of like the thing. I think that, you know, those, you know, parents wanting to see that success story. It has to be self-driven though. You have to have the athlete that wants to be great.
I love the fact that you bring that up too, because, you know, you're explaining the why, you know, and a lot of young athletes don't understand that. Like, why do you have to show up first? Why do you have to be the last to leave? Why do you have to put the extra work in? That's really important. And then one thing that you said that I really love is that, you know, you talk about Jared McCain and you talk about the quality of that hour when he's in the gym. He's not just messing around. It's time to work.
Yeah.
You know, and that quality is there. The last thing I'm going to bring up about Jared McCain, I want to know is about this locker right here.
Yeah.
You know, can you tell us a little bit about that? Because I think that's pretty cool.
Yeah, no, for sure. I don't know if we can see behind, but when you walk into our team room, we have kind of a little thing up here. Donovan Dent, the 2022 State Player of the Year, and then next to him you have Jared, the 2023 State Player of the Year. But Jared's locker is right here, and Jared comes back to Corona a lot, and when he comes back, he's usually always hitting me up about getting the keys, stealing the keys so he can come over to Centennial and get up shots. So
That's cool.
Whenever he comes here to work out, he needs a locker. So yeah, we've made it very clear that's 2-4's locker, and it will always remain his locker. So he's got his nameplate still up there, and nobody's allowed to sit in it. So when he's back in town and he needs somewhere to shoot, this is Jared's. Like, and it's funny. So it's kind of like it's empty right now, but that's because Jared doesn't have anything here. But like, you know, when he's in town, he's always like, you know, he'll text me from the airplane as it's getting ready to land, like, hey, I'll be at your house in an hour. I'm gonna go pick up the keys. And so, you know, whenever he needs that, he needs a place to change, right? He needs a place to put his stuff. So it will always remain his locker. Like, nobody sits in it, nobody puts anything in there. You know, if
all the other players, they respect that.
They understand that. And if you want to have your own locker, then you got to go win 3 CIF Open Division titles. You got to win a state title, win a gold medal, be a McDonald's All-American. You know,
Cool, yeah.
You know, be the CIF Player of the Year, be the Riverside County Player of the Year. Yeah, you know, so if you want to do it, you got to do some of the things that he did, and his resume is right up there with like the greatest winners in, you know, for basketball in all of Southern California. You know, you got Stanley Johnson at Mater Dei, you know, guys like that won a ton, but Jared's right there. Yeah. So he has his own little, I guess, his little locker room shrine that nobody can touch.
That's cool. Centennial royalty. I like that.
Yeah, no, definitely. He's the head of our Mount Rushmore, right?
Nice.
Yeah, so he's up there.
Okay, so I got one more question regarding, I had to get your opinion on this regarding development. You know, a few months back, Adam Silver, the commissioner of the NBA, he came out and said that compared to Europe, young athletes, young hoopers in the United States are focused a lot more on competition over practice. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, it was not. I got to meet him at the draft with Jared, and he was a good guy, and we actually had a very, very brief conversation about this. And I think Kobe Bryant explains it great too. You know, the late Kobe Bryant talks about it, and you know, once you get through some of the language that he uses, because he was pretty adamant about it. Yeah, it's totally different. Like when you look at the European model, if I believe they play 2 games a week. You know, so they can play on like a Saturday, Sunday, that's it. Yeah. Those other 5 days, it's all practice. Yes. And so it's, you know, skill work. They're learning how to practice, learning how to play without the ball. They're learning to do all that kind of stuff. That is the complete opposite of the AAU model that we have in the United States. And I think that's why, you know, when you see the Olympics and stuff, yeah, we have the way more talented players. We have the way better athletes and all this stuff. but the rest of the world is able to play with us because they play a better game as far as like being able to do all that kind of stuff.
Yes.
And I think that's why they've closed the gap. And so like, you know, Kobe has, if you YouTube it, he has a lot of stuff that he talks about on it. And I think he's right. Like, you know, I think if we spent more time on the skill and development, the learning how to play and stuff like that, like basic fundamental stuff, like we don't know how to do. And you'll see it with the guys that come in, that basic fundamental stuff, very, very talented freshmen, very talented sophomores, and you'll watch them and it's like, how do you not know like how to do this stuff? Like basic, like see your man, see the ball. Like this is basic stuff that a first grader should know. And you'll have an unbelievable player that doesn't know how to do it. You know what I mean? And so I think that's the biggest difference. And my son was at a AAU event this summer, and I saw a player that I knew from back when I was in high school, and I used to watch him play, and you know, I saw him, and he played overseas for years, and he still lives in Italy. And so his son was out here to play against some stuff, and he talked about it. Like, so he coaches one of the national teams back in Italy still, and he's like, yeah, you know, they play one game, maybe 2 a week. Wow. And you look at the model of the United States, you know, they're playing. These guys are playing hundreds of games during the summer, and like I've totally changed how we do our summer stuff because of how many games these guys play. Yeah, if we could, I don't know how you would even go about trying to regulate that, but I think the European model is showing to be way more successful, or the overseas model, than kind of what we're doing. And that's why you see, I mean, look at the first round this year of the NBA draft. How many of those guys, like in the top 10, were European-born players? Was it like 4 or 5? You know, that's crazy. And I think, but they know how to play. I think they know, I'm not saying they're better, but I think they know how to play the game better, if that makes sense.
For sure. You know, and obviously, you know, what do we do about that? You know, that's the reason we're sitting here talking to you. I mean, I feel like the more that we can educate parents and young athletes on the things that they should be focused on, what development looks like, you know, we're making a difference. You know, so I appreciate that, Coach. I appreciate the time. This is awesome. You know, got to talk a little bit about McCain. I mean, that's just an awesome story. Appreciate it. Back to you, Pep.